Welcome to Comedy Centric, your place for all things comedy. Every week, we'll discuss the legends and the people who built the business, the performers, writers, behind the scenes, and stories that you have never heard. So relax, take a load off, and join us for this episode of Comedy Centric. Now, the host of your show, nationally headlining comedian, a woman with a wicked sense of humor and a killer Jersey accent, Julia Scotti.
Where is she? Oh, there she is. That's a snazzy new opening. You like that?
I like it.
I do too. That's Jimmy Corhan, our producer. And before we even start, I know we say we're going to do this every week, but our opening theme was written by our good friend Paul Marzano. So you can get it. It's on his new album. And if I could remember the name of the song, I would tell you right now. But just look up Paul Marzano.
We don't.
Hi, Kath.
Hi, I'm Kathy Caldwell.
That's Kathy Caldwell. Yeah, my
You're
better
a
half.
terrible host.
I know.
Really bad.
I was a terrible spouse. I'm a terrible host.
When people walk in, you just you don't introduce them. You're just like, hey, come on in. And then there's all these strange people sitting in the living room.
Well, you know what it is? I like to think that I'm bringing we only have 4 listeners, and we had 6, but a couple they died. The 2 of them, I don't know. Yeah, I know. Rest in peace. But now we have 4. But I figure they know everybody I know, so I'm just gonna pretend we're all sitting around having coffee. Anyway, how was your weekend?
A lot of sports. Of sports going on. Woo, fun. Baseball, football, Phillies winning. Good stuff.
I heard that. Congratulations to
I hear
the
your
Phillies.
cat.
That's Katie. She's not a Phillies fan.
No, I locked my cat up. I gave him.
All right, I know you said you locked your cat up. What do you want me to do? What
I
do you
don't
want me to
interrupt. Very important.
You're heartless. You imprisoned that poor kitten.
Mine
roams free. She's a free range cat. No, I'm not locking her up. No, let everybody deal with her. What did you want to ask me? You had to ask me something.
Forget.
You wrote something down on a piece of paper right before.
Oh, yes. Okay. So 2 things. I got to ask you 2 things. First of all, did you hear about the big snow crab problem that we have? First time in history, they are canceling the Alaskan snow crab season because the crabs are gone.
Where'd they go?
Nobody knows. 1 billion crabs gone. Can't find them. So that means no snow crabs.
So endless crab. Well, because people keep stealing their legs, and they throw back.
Yeah, but they usually they reproduce and they usually do a good job. But first time ever canceling the snow crab.
All right. Well, should we have a moment of silence?
Listen, this is
personally,
seismic.
I'm glad they did because
no. It has nothing to do with that. It means the ecosystem is changing. We're screwed, baby. We're screwed.
First, they came for the snow crabs.
And you didn't say anything.
Did nothing.
You did nothing.
I didn't hear that.
You kept your trap shut.
I see what you did there. What was the other thing you wanted to tell me?
Oh, I was thinking about our parade, and I missed my convertible.
Oh, the parade we did for my birthday. I miss your convertible too.
I know. And I was thinking about getting another one.
Really? Okay. What kind?
I want to go old school. I was thinking about an MG.
Oh, an MG convertible. I might be able to help you with that.
You know anything about it?
I don't know. We'll talk about it after the show. I think I know somebody that has actually got one. Yeah, but let's move on. Let's bring on our guest. Maybe he can help us out a little bit too. This guy, I met him right about the time he got into stand-up. I was already in for like a year or so, and he came. He's from Jersey, which surprised me because, but he's from way down South Jersey, like in Pennsville, down that area. But I met him at the Improv, and he was one of those guys that went out in the '80s out to the coast and did everything while I stayed home and did absolutely nothing. But we'll talk about his career. Right now, he's touring with his own one-man show called America's Reflection in a Funhouse Mirror. a history of stand-up comedy. All of stand-up comedy he covers in an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's amazing. He talks really fast. But anyway, let's bring him on. It's a pleasure to have Ritch Shydner. Are you there?
Hey, I'm here. I'm here.
Ritch, you know anything about MGs?
Yes, I just bought one. I had one back in 1975 for like a year or so before I went to law school, and then this thing centered, and then
Ritch, move your head over a little bit.
I know,
Move your head
I know.
over.
And so I had like a real need for it. And now I just wanted a toy, and so I just got one from another comedian named John Carfeet down in Sarasota. He was selling, and it's a good year. 1977 is what I bought. That's the year I started doing stand-up comedy. So it's like one of those years.
Oh, all right. So it's a commemorative car.
Yeah, for me, you know.
What color
It's funny you mentioned the MG because
Red.
I'm watching the Italian version of Nero Wolfe. You know, the detective. They did a series on Italian television, but the guy Archie, his sidekick, his assistant, drives an MG in this thing, and so this is like the second time in 3 days I've heard about MGs.
I had a joke way back when I first started. I said, because I got the thing thinking I was in a small town. I just got out of college. I go, this will give me a lot of dates. It did. A lot of first dates. I didn't like pushing a car back to town. It was those things, man. I mean, they did.
Like Jaguars. You needed one you could drive, and then one while the other one was in the shop.
But for old convertibles, I mean, if you try to get into a Chevy or Ford, you're not getting in there a decent Chevy or Ford for under 30 grand. Yeah. And if you can get into this thing, you can get in these things relatively inexpensive. You just have to have a good mechanic in the area for British cars.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you need a special. Well, here I did not realize you were from New Jersey for some reason. I don't know why I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I always thought of you as being from the Midwest.
Most people,
because he's nice. He's nice.
No.
He has kind of an accent that's not a Jersey. It's
real
accent.
South water. You want to drink a water? I'm totally South Jersey.
Yeah, he's from.
Yeah, we're going to bury him. We're going to bury him Friday. He died yesterday. We're burying him Friday. I'm home and I'm on my phone. Those long O's. That's it.
Yeah. I don't know why I just did, but anyway, enough of that. Let's talk about the history of stand-up comedy. So,
sure.
You've done so many other things, and we're going to sort of work backwards with your life. But let's talk about that because I saw the show and it's really terrific. I mean, you talk about it. Give us.
Yeah. So I had no interest in history until I became history. I got older and I got interested, and Phyllis Diller was a friend, and I had a lot of conversations with her about it. And we both thought that Mark Twain was the first stand-up because he did these lectures and after dinner speaking where he essentially was just being funny. Actually, it was a guy named Artemus Ward was the first stand-up comic. It's a totally original American art form. This guy started in the Civil War, and he taught Twain. He met Twain out in Virginia City during the Civil War, where Twain was a reporter for this territorial enterprise, and Artemus Ward was a big star. He was a huge star. This is not like some obscure guy that wasn't famous at his time. He was one of the first showbiz stars in America. He was huge. Lincoln was a fan. He used to sneak into the White House. He was a total road comic. And everybody complains, the airlines. Yeah, try a buckboard for 90 miles over rutted roads. They knock your teeth out. The guys would stop and they'd bleed when they peed because of the kidneys rattling around.
Oh.
I mean, the trains were rough. He traveled and he drank and smoked weed, and he was a total stand-up comic.
Pretty much like comics today.
And he was just a wild guy. He traveled with a kangaroo because he thought that was funny. He'd sit a kangaroo on stage. I mean, remember, this is 1860, so they were just discovering what Australia was about. Yeah, kangaroos. And he had this docile old kangaroo he got from a circus, and he'd travel with it and sit it on stage while I did these lectures. When he look, every comic, when you hit the zeitgeist of America, like when you go to what their fears and obsessions are. So back then, right, there was no safety social net. If you didn't work, you didn't get paid. If you didn't work, you didn't eat, right? So he played a slacker character, brilliant comedic relief. And he had jokes like, we must all learn to live within our means, even if we have to borrow money to do so. And so he was a brilliant. Yeah, it is. It's still a great joke. He was a brilliant guy. He died at 33, excuse me. He died at 33 in England of tuberculosis, which they didn't really have the name for it yet.
Consumption.
He went there because the English had looked down on everything we had done culturally. They looked at us as the hick cousins across the water. Their idea of American comedy was a guy in a coonskin cap dancing the banjo music on stage. And he went over there and knocked them out. The royals loved him. The upper class loved him. The intelligentsia, Charles Dickens, all these people, they all loved him. What he did, and when he died, he had a funeral for a couple thousand people, a state funeral. And the London Times wrote an obituary. They said, "This is an American original. We have never seen the likes of one man controlling the minds of an audience through sheer wit, just his wit." And so they stamped it as an original American art form. And
that Artemus Ward.
Yeah. I'm obsessed with the guy.
Have you heard of Artemus Ward before?
I've heard the name, but I didn't know the history. I didn't know much about him. No. So it wasn't until I watched the Rich's show that you learn a lot from the show about, especially early stand-up. Yeah.
Now, how did you research that, Rich? How did you?
I like I said, Phyllis Diller was a friend, and she was encouraging me to. I have a note here saying, write this book, and it'll be in every library in the country. I have this note from Phyllis, and I thought Twain was the guy, and Twain wrote an essay in one of his books, Roughing It. I think it was Roughing It, and he said, "This is the funniest man I ever saw," and he talked about how Artemus Ward taught him how to tell a story. He said, "This guy was the funniest guy I ever saw." And it was really funny because, and you don't relate to this as a stand-up, when Twain saw Artemus Ward perform in Virginia City, of course, he was a funny guy himself. They hadn't met yet. He's just a reporter and so he's delayed on his laugh because he'd watch the joke and he'd try to figure out what it was, and then he'd go, then he'd laugh, right? Because he was delayed. So he's throwing off Artemus Ward's timing, right? He's got this big hee-haw laugh, like every comic does, some sort of significant laugh. He's but he's behind the rest of the crowd. So he does this twice. The third time, Artemus Ward turns to him and says, "Somebody water that jackass." I mean, he was sharp. He's quick on his feet. He was everything.
Great crowd work. Yeah. I knew that about Twain. I'm a big Twain fan, and next to Twain in the 19th century, the guy behind me for the 20th century. I don't know if you could see Gene Shepard. You see that picture of Gene Shepard?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Gene Shepard.
He's my idol. He's my idol, and I owe Kathy that for that poster because he worked where she works, the radio station where she works.
Really?
KYW, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, I have so many old things. You'll like this story. This has just happened. So I have so many old pictures and things. Somebody gave me a picture. I think they sold it to me, but I got it. They offered me a picture of Steve Martin in concert from like 1978. So there was taken by someone in the audience. And they told me, because I went to the Capitol Senator show that he did in Washington, D.C., by about 13,000 people, rock star stuff. I mean, unheard of to that point. And he's on stage and he's got the rabbit ears in, not the arrow through the head. He's got the rabbit ears in, and he's doing like a Nixon with his, V up in the air, and he's got the white suit, and you can see this big smile on his face. He's doing his character, right? And so I'm going to go see Steve Martin and Martin Short Friday night. And I go, I'm going to take this picture and give it to Steve. I'd given him something else he'd never had before, a show tape of him that somebody gave me from 1973 that he didn't have any of that. It was unbelievable.
We have 4 listeners. Tell them how you and Steve know each other.
Steve Martin did a movie Roxanne. And so he had all these roles like a fireman, and he had these 2 drunks who fight him in the beginning of the movie. So he, was always watching young comics, and he just told the director, "I want these comics." He named us. And
he had Max Alexander in there too.
Max me, Steve Middleman,
right?
Jeffrey Joseph, Damon Wayans, Kevin Nealon. So I hope I didn't forget anybody, but we all went up there to do this movie, Roxanne, and And part of the thrill for me was there's a scene in this movie where he does like 20 jokes about his nose in a bar, like off the top of his head. The guy heckles him in a situation, and he does these 20 in response. So he goes to me, he goes, I'm the only guy left because I'm in this scene. And he says, would you come to my hotel room tonight before we shoot tomorrow and help me rewrite these jokes?
Oh my God. No, I'm very busy.
No, yeah, exactly. I said, come on, man. You can't do it yourself. But he's already written them. They're in the script. I don't know. I can't say, oh, I did this joke or that. I can't say what happened. I probably didn't do anything. They were probably all great. We just went through them. But we did. And I walked out of the hotel room. Okay. And I go, and I'm really bouncing off the hotel room walls though. I'm so high because 10 years before I stood in the crowd watching him, never for a second thinking I was getting into showbiz. And then I get back to my hotel room. I'm taking off my jacket. My hand goes in my pocket, and there's a big wad of cash. I pull out a big wad of cash. I'm going to tell you, it's like $4,000 in cash. This is
how
1987. About $3,000-4,000. It was a significant amount that
Holy
he'd slid into my pocket. That I didn't know he'd slid it into my pocket. He did. I never said anything to him about it. I think I said thanks. I saw him the next night at the rap party, and he didn't. It was like he just did it, and he didn't believe me. He didn't have to pay me a cent. So Friday night, I got this picture. I gave him the tape before to his Eileen Waterston's his assistant, who's now retired. I gave him a tape of that show in Florida State University where he played for a couple hundred students in '73. It's amazing. You can hear his character already there. And so I got this picture. I'm going to just give it to him at this show. And they go, so I think I'm going backstage. And then I get a text from the new assistant saying they're really worried about COVID. There'll be no backstage meet and greet. I said, okay. So I'm driving, and I'm a conniver. I'm thinking, I give him that picture. I send that picture back. He's going to at least go, hey, come to the stage door for a little handshake and thanks. You know what I mean? I'll get a little love there or something, And I get there, the place is packed. Knoxville's packed with people. We have a hard time parking. We're late because it's playing football game the next day against Alabama. Place is mobbed. It's like Mardi Gras. Going down through the street, my wife hands me the picture. I must have not put it into my coat properly. I lost the picture. We get to the theater. I don't have the picture. So So we get our comp seats. We got comp seats. We get their comp seats, and I gotta let it go. I go, I felt like an idiot. I go, here I am. I got early dementia right off the bat, and I'm going, you stupid. You got one thing to do: carry a picture, and you can't do it.
So he knew you were there. He knew.
I didn't think he knew. Okay. I knew the assistant knew I was there, but I didn't know if Steve knew or not. I knew I got the comp seats. And so the show's over. I didn't say anything about the picture. I didn't say, hey, I lost the picture. I didn't say I had a picture. I just left. And when we're outside, I'm walking back and I pick up my phone and go text a thank you to the assistant. And he's like, we're nearly to our car, like a 10-minute walk. And I get this text saying, hey, Steve wants to know why you're not coming backstage. So I sprint back like an old man, like a crazy old man, running through this crowd of people like against the current. You know what I mean? Out of my way, out of my way.
Did you at least get a picture that time?
No, I got Steven. I didn't get a picture backstage. I'm not that guy. I'm not that. Hey, can I get a picture with you, Steve? You know what I mean? I'm not, because I know one thing for sure. He used to, when people would ask him for an autograph, he had a card he would hand them and say, the card said, you've just had an experience with Steve Martin. He never liked autographing things.
Yeah.
So I would never go. I just didn't think, and I'm not that guy, really, honestly. I don't never give a picture with this guy or that guy.
Oh, I would have been all over that. I really have no.
No, that's not true because you were not hanging out, but you had that flight with Julia.
With Ed Asner?
Yeah. And you didn't go fangirl on him. You played it real cool and you're like, oh no, Mr. Asner, I don't need a ride in your limo home.
He was so. Did you ever meet him? Rich? Mm-mm. I met him in Newark Airport on a flight. Well, actually, from LAX to Newark, and we met. He was a smoker, and I was a smoker at the time. And he offered me. He said we met right outside the terminal, and he's going. I told him who I was, and that it was show business, sort of, not like you, not like him. I meant. And he goes, well, I'm going into New York. They sent a car for me. You need a ride? Now my car is parked across Route 9, in a parking lot. I'm thinking, well, shit, I could either get a free ride into New York with Ed Asner and talk to this living legend for like an hour, or I can get my car and go home. And I thought, if I went with Asner, how was I going to get back to my car? I didn't, and I was.
But you didn't fangirl out on him. You like you were saying, Rich. You understand and respect those boundaries.
Yeah. And we had a cool hang backstage, And I think that puts a crimp in it. I have a picture. It's just, for me, I mean, we're in show business. We're both in it. It's like, come on, really?
They had to restrain me, though. We had Bill Persky on this show. Do you know Bill Persky from the writer, Dick Van Dyke writer, Bill Persky?
Oh, no. Dick Van Dyke writer. Wow.
Yeah, and he was, created Batgirl, and he seems to come up in every episode we do now. He was one of my childhood idols. I wasn't into sports, but I was into comedy writers. And,
wow.
Yeah. So we got him on, and I Kat is like, I didn't want to gush all over him.
She gushed a little, Rich. I mean, like she's doing with you. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh, come on. No, I know him 100 years.
Yeah.
So you guys met 100 years ago.
Yeah. I got to New York in 79. I think we met somewhere.
Where are you from?
I started at the Improv in 80.
You're from New Jersey, that area originally?
Yeah, I'm from South Jersey. It's Pennsville, small town, right there at the Delaware Memorial Bridge. There's two twin bridges that go across 95. Yeah, right there.
Sure, I know it.
Small town.
So you go out to California. What year? That 82?
82.
Okay.
Yeah.
And 4 years later, you wind up on Married with Children.
Yeah. That was I had gone to, we'd go to network, right? Where you're the last people to audition. You go through all these auditions, preliminaries, and the finals, they say, you're going to network. I'd gone to network right before that for Cheers. The Woody Harrelson got the role when the coach died.
Really?
So there was me, a guy who ended up being the Grizzly Man. Now I'm dropping his name right now. I can't think of his name. Timothy Treadwell. Timothy Treadwell was a guy, if you look at that documentary called Grizzly Man, he was the third guy. They had three blondes. We were supposed to be dumb guys, right? Three dumb blondes.
This is for Cheers or for Married?
One blonde from the West Coast. That was Timothy Treadwell. He's like a surfer type. Then there was Woody from the Midwest, and I was the East Coast guy. I now look back and I can see that's what it was. With three blondes, right? And I didn't get that, or they made the right choice. So now I'm going to the network, and as I'm sitting there with the two other guys in the hallway waiting to go in the audition, here come the two producers, Ron Levitt and Michael Moy, the creators of Married with Children. Now remember, Fox is not a network. They said you're auditioning for a pilot for a show on a new network. Okay. Wow. The guy across from me, the actor across from me, jumps up and runs at Michael Moy. Michael Moy hugs him, and they're like best friends. He goes, "Hey, you're gonna love it in LA. The guy's got his piece of luggage. You put your luggage in your house. My wife's got your room set up till you get your own apartment." Blah. I go, "This guy's got the role, right? He's got it." And so the other guy, the third actor, he slumped over like Lee Harvey Oswald getting shot by Jack Ruby. He's completely gut shot. He's done. I'm like pissed off. I'm angry, right? And I'm like, what did I even come over here for? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm getting ready to leave. I go, I'm just going to go. And the assistant comes out and says, "Ritch, you're first. Come on in." So I come in there full of attitude. And I just start riffing on everything. I'm making fun of there's no network. The whole thing's a scam. I said, what is this? Blah, blah, blah. And Ron Levitt, the other Crow creator, told me this a couple of years later. He said, when you walked out, it was over. Fox loved you. They loved you, right? So the next two guys come in, they're straight actors. They're not clowning like you. They're not riffing. They just do the script and that's all they got. And I was loose with the script. I didn't care. So
there's a story about Danny DeVito, how he got Louis De Palma in a similar way. Yeah, he comes into the audition. He takes the script and slams it on the table and goes, "Who wrote this shit?"
I might have been doing. I don't know what I was out of control. I know I was like, and anyway. So Michael Moy hated me as soon as I won the role because I beat his friend out. So I did 7 episodes, and then they cut my character. That was it. They let you know you don't have the job in Hollywood. Every Friday, I'd get a script for the Monday read through, right? The table read. seventh week, after 6 weeks in a row getting a script on Friday, 7th week, I don't get a script, or it's 8th week, whatever. And so I called my agent and said, hey, I didn't deliver the script. He goes, it's a delivery problem. No problem. I'll give a call. He calls it back. Bad news. You're fired.
Oh my God.
They dropped, because I had a contract that was 7 of the first 13. So once I did my 7, they just let me go.
So was this prior to doing Carson or
no? I did Carson first time 84. So this was I think we did this pilot 86 or 87. I forget.
Okay. But that should have that opened up doors for other parts. Yes.
I did all sorts of stuff. I mean, I had my chance. I had 5 pilots from my own series that didn't go. So I had my shots, as they say, if you're out there long enough, you'll be weighed and measured and maybe found a bit light, but you'll be weighed and measured. You'll get your shots. That's what I think.
Your biography, I was laughing. I was reading it this afternoon, and you're very self-deprecating about the trajectory of your career, which I think is, I wish I would have had a career like you. I thought it was a terrific career, but I understand where you're coming from.
I love guys who go like, people are acting like they still have a shot at doing something. I said, all the kingdoms have been won. All the flags have been planted. At this point, you better be just having fun doing this, not doing it to try to get somewhere. If you're doing it to have fun, great. But I gave it my best. I gave it all I got. You do the best you can, and you can see where you end up. That's all.
I think. Listen, everybody thinks that if you're not, you don't get the brass ring, that you haven't made it. I totally disagree. The fact that you're a working comic and you're a writer, you've got a show out, and you're here 40 years later. Damn it, man, that's a success.
But also that you've touched people, and that I'm sure as you go throughout life, there are people that go, oh, I remember that from the show Ritch did, or I remember that. There are those things that are just impactful in life, and it doesn't necessarily reflect in dollars or cents, but it's meaningful.
Absolutely. those moments. Look, I joke around this before. I said, I didn't get into this business for the money, and that's been working out real well. It's not, and the truth is, I got seduced by the laughter. The laughter was always currency in my house. My dad was a rough and tough alcoholic when I was young. And when he was laughing, nobody got hit. Nobody got yelled at. You know what I mean? Laughter got me out of a lot of trouble. And so laughter was valuable. And as soon as I got a dose of it, like on stage, as soon as I got in college, when I got like a bunch of people laughing at me, doing what I was doing, I said, this is it. And then that was always it for me, the laughter. So I'm still getting that. And what you said, Kathy, is so true. And Julia knows this. You come off stage some night, you go, I remember one night I came off, this guy was sitting like 2 rows back, and I could see him clear as bell, and he's got a stone face looking at me.
One of these guys? These guys?
He's just sitting there looking at me, and I go, well, let's see. Does he speak English? Maybe that's the problem. Let's see. Does he, maybe I look like the guy who stole his wife from him. I don't know. You just kind of let it go. So I go back to the bar. This is when I was still drinking and drugging. I go back to the bar. The guy comes up to me and he says, my wife died in a car accident like a month ago, and I've been out of the house. Haven't says you know how much this meant to me. You were the funniest thing, and blah blah blah. He goes, thank you so much. I go, first of all, I didn't think he liked what I was doing, and secondly, you don't expect that, but that's what it means. That's meaningful.
We all have that similar story.
Sure. Sure.
We think that our job sometimes is sort of trite and ridiculous, and it is to a certain degree. But we also provide a service to humanity. I think that I treasure.
I absolutely. A long time ago, a guy gave me a thing. Before I go on stage, all I do is pray to be of service to this audience right here, right now. When I do that, everything's fine. Now I still may come off stage not feeling great about myself or not feeling great about what I did, but it's not important for me to be concerned about how I feel. Did they have a good time? That's all that matters. And when I'm service to the crowd, when I got out of being of service to the crowd, is when I got in trouble. When I started thinking, what am I getting out of this? When am I going to get the thing I want out of this? And when I started doing that, I got in trouble.
You and I share something similar in our careers too, our career paths too, because we each took a break I don't know what you became. You focused on writing, I think. Was that what you wrote for?
Yeah. Roseanne. That was
Roseanne
my first show.
Foxbury.
Yeah,
we had Carrie Snow on last week. She was talking about
I
Roseanne
love
too.
Carrie. We had fun there.
And so you took that time off. I became a teacher and changed my gender. So I was a little. My path took a
way to keep up, Ritch.
Yeah. You want to catch up with me?
I'm not that good at this gender. I don't want to try failing it too.
But I mean, coming back, and I know that when I came back, comedy had a different meaning for me. Whereas before, in the first 20 years, I wanted to be rich and famous, and this time it was almost like a religious calling for me. It was. Well, go ahead, Kat.
I think one of the things that every comedian, and I should always remember is this might be this person's only night out for this month, 2 months. It might be the only time they get a babysitter. It might be the only money they have. Whatever this is their night out, and they are choosing to spend it with you. And if you can give them an experience, then that is the ultimate connection.
That's it. I mean, it's the only thing that matters is just making them happy and making them laugh.
Right.
It's not getting my point across.
Right.
And I saw somebody came off and it was like, talk for 15 minutes about a recent breakup. I got that all out. That was good. I felt good. I said, this is not therapy. It's not your therapy. If you're not getting up there, your license to be on stage is to get laughs. I don't have a license to sing. I don't have a license to dance. I don't have a license to do anything else but get laughs.
I got to tell you the story because you knew Richie Tinkin, right? You knew Richie, right?
I'll tell you a story. Go ahead.
So when I come back to comedy,
who's Richie Tinkin?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Kathy was your
like Richie Tinkin. It's like Richie Tinkin like Tom Brady. Oh,
all right. Richie Tinkin and Bob Wax were the founders of the comic strip in New York City. Okay, Richie wound up managing Eddie Murphy and blah 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 blah. So that's the background. He was very in the.
He was a Bronx bar owner. He was a rough and tough Bronx bar owner.
Okay. Exactly.
I mean, he didn't come in there from a collegiate background.
Gotcha.
I think they own like stripper bars or gay bars or something in the Bronx.
They had a bunch of stuff in the Bronx.
So I'm thinking of coming back to comedy, right? And somehow there's a guy named Jimmy Mack who owns a bar in Asbury Park who knows Tinkin. So he gives me Tinkin's phone number and he tells Tinkin I'm going to call him. So I call him and he sort of remembered me. I was never a regular at the strip, but he was very nice. And I said to him, Richie, I'm thinking of coming back to comedy. He goes, well, what are you going to talk about? And he goes, I thought I'd talk about my life. Not even a beat. He went, nobody gives a shit about your life. Just be funny.
I love it. That's him. God rest his soul.
Yeah, really. It was.
He's not with us anymore?
No, he's not. He had a throat. Didn't he have like a throat thing going on or
cancer? Yeah,
cancer. Yeah.
But
he was.
Gosh.
Yeah, he. And I'm sorry I never got to see the stand-up history show because he contacted me when he found out I was doing it. He wanted to see it. We talked a long time about it. I reminded him of this story. I was an improv guy mostly and a Catch a Rising Star guy. My girlfriend, who then became my wife, Carol Leifer, was a comic strip starter. She started there. So she played all the clubs too. But, you always had like one home club. So I always felt like even though we get on to the comic strip, I was not one of the regular comic strip people. And so when I go there and hang out the bar and I do late sets and stuff like that there, obviously. And one night we're sitting there and I don't forget who was the MC, Hiram Cass, and somebody come out there complaining about some hecklers like messing up the show, and we're sitting at the bar. Richie's down there, and finally, the second or third time that the MC complains about it, he goes, "Put Shydner on; he'll take care of him." I didn't even know I existed, I was like, "Yeah, I'll go get him," because I started opening up for rock bands in DC, and I had a real vicious. I had fun with hecklers; they never bothered me. But when I grew up, I don't know how your language here, but we used to call it busting your.
Oh, right? Yeah, no, we're fine with language.
Busting your balls. So we busted our balls If you couldn't take a shot to the balls, you couldn't get into the circle. You know what I mean? You had to be able to bang, bang, bang back and forth. You know, so heckling to me was just that. You know,
Did
you
you
want to
work
come at me?
Pips?
Come on.
Did you ever work?
Oh
Pips?
yeah. Oh yeah.
That's
Marty,
Pips was
Pips was one of the first comedy clubs in the country. It wasn't fully dedicated. It was like Rodney opened in '62, and I think Pips might have opened like just before. Rodney
a couple
opened
of years
later.
before. Yeah.
Yeah. Pips opened like '62 or something, but it was music acts and they had comic acts, but it was a nightclub, and they pay us $7. This is when I got there. In first time I did it was like '79. They'd pay you $75 for 4 shows, right?
Yes.
So,
but it was the most difficult audiences on the planet.
They could be real. Yeah, absolutely. And you had this
$75 for each show?
4 shows. 4 shows, 75.
4 shows. Oh.
Now this is my rent down on the Lower East Side of Manhattan was $115 a month. So $75 was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know, a lot of money. So, but Marty and Seth were the sons, and George Schultz was the owner. He was an old style, Georgie Starr. I think his name was Georgie Starr when he performed. He was an old style comic who claimed that he gave Rodney "I don't get no respect" act. That line. It was a joke that he did talking about a guy who whacked people, a mobster who whacked people, and every time they go, why'd you whack me? He didn't respect me. I don't get no respect. They he had that. And Rodney saw that as something he could use.
And
so he would. This is one thing. Pardon? No. He gave it to him. George Schultz gave it to him. But afterwards, one night I was there, and Seth says, "Hey, my dad says I want you to come up and drink with him afterwards at the show." They had an apartment upstairs above the club.
Right.
So I go up there, and it's him and this other old Jewish guy. And we're drinking and they go, "Oh, it's 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. Get the TV on. Rat Patrol's coming on." So remember, there's an old show called Rat Patrol. It was these guys with Jeeps with 50 caliber guns on the back of the Jeeps running around shooting Nazis in the desert. Okay, that's what it was. So, shot out in Malibu. You know what I mean? They made it look like a desert. So they go. I go, "What's the deal with this show?" And they go, "This show, more than combat, more than First Lieutenant, any other show." Kills more Nazis than any other show. They always get lots of Nazis. And every time a German soldier got shot, they would drink a shot of schnapps. They go, "L'chaim." And every time a German got shot. Yeah, it was a drinking game. Like a guy shot a German. The Germans are just falling like crazy. These guys were getting hammered.
Oh, that's so funny. I never heard that story. I never heard about that is very funny. Well, I hate to admit, but I did not see the documentary "I Am Comic."
My comeback.
I know that I'm not in it, but that's a whole other show.
It's all about her.
That's
all about her, Rich.
You must not have been. We dragged in every comic, and you just weren't within range.
Yeah. Tell me about it, because it sounds really interesting. I've never seen it anywhere. It can be seen.
Mark, absolutely. You could go on YouTube. I think it's on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Mark Schiff and I came out with a book in 2005 that we put there called "I Killed," which are road stories of the comics, all these different road stories. And then Jordan Brady read the book and came to me and said, "I want to do a book. I want to do a documentary about stand-up comedy, road stories." I said, "I'm not interested so much in just doing road stories. I think we should talk about what it takes to be a comic and what comics are like and the personality. That I'm interested." He said, "Yeah, sure, whatever. Let's just get going." So, because I learned that documentaries change. So we're there, Jordan's directing, and I'm supposed to be the quote unquote writer, or I'm interviewing the different comics. So Jordan, being a sharp guy and a director, he sees he needs something more to this story than just that. Now I haven't done stand-up since like 97. I think my last Tonight Show with Jay Leno was 97. And I kind of, because I was writing so much, I just kind of faded away and just stopped doing stand-up. Now it's whatever year is 2008, 2009. I don't know, whether 10 or 11 years later.
2010, according to the.
Yeah, well, 2010 is when it came out, but when we got together. So one night we're in UCB, the Upright Citizens Brigade was real hot at the time, and they had their showcase place was up on Franklin, Hollywood. So we're up there and I'm watching all these young comics, terrific, man, great young comics, and I'm watching them, And Jordan sees this look on my face, and he goes, how would you like to go back on stage? And I'm like, later I went, he pointed a camera at a narcissist. What chance would that be? Yeah, okay, I'll go on stage. So that's how I started coming back. Yeah. I mean, you're going to put me on camera? Oh, I don't know, man.
See, that's kind of, our lives are really parallel that way, because the same thing sort of happened to me when I came back. I don't know if you know Chris Ritch. Do you know the comedian?
No.
Chris Ritch
No,
from
I know
Philadelphia?
the name. I do know the name.
Okay. I was out of comedy 10 years, and we had lunch one day. I hadn't seen her in a long time. And in the course of the lunch, she says to me, so when are you coming back to comedy? I go, I'm not coming back. I'm old. I'm transgender. I'm old and stuff. She goes, you want it. And of course, yes, I did. So she arranged for me to go to the Comedy Works in Bristol, Pennsylvania.
That's
and
great.
And the same thing happened. I was on stage. And next thing you know, here I am, 10 years later.
Yeah. It when I don't know about you, Julie, if you had this situation, but when I quit, and I was writing for a lot of TV shows, so I was making really good money. I mean, people don't realize how much I never realized how much money you get paid writing for sitcoms. So financially, I was doing better than I'd ever done in stand-up, really, except I had the deals for my own pilots. But I was making a lot of money. But mental health, I was going down bad. Now, that wasn't about drinking and drugging. I hadn't had a drink and a drug for years, but I missed that daily calibration of my soul. I missed that being of service to the audience and hearing that that laughter is my music. Yeah. And I didn't hear it for a long time. And I gained weight. I got depressed. I was on medications, I got diagnosed as bipolar, PTSD from the violence when I was young, and clinically depressed. I got diagnosed with a lot of things.
No, I believe it. I totally understand that.
And then I came back to stand up. I started doing stand up again, and guess what? No medications. No, what I mean? Everything's manageable just by exercise and being creative. And that's just a different thing.
They say people that laugh and that bring laughter into their life are 30% healthier or something like that than the normal person. Just when you can laugh, it just it releases endorphins and you're just happier.
It does good things. It also shows more than I think. I'm not going to get into that laughter heals, because that we all know that they've disproven that it doesn't do anything more than what you just said, which is fine. Nice little rush. It's like a shot of caffeine, but it shows an attitude. It shows an attitude about life. Did you ever read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning of Life? It's an incredible book by a Holocaust death camp survivor, Viktor Frankl. So his experience, and it's not a long book. You got to read it. But the main thing I got out of it was that he said the two people he noticed who had the best chance of survival in the camp were the ones who got closer to their God and the ones who had a sense of humor. And then, based on that book, I went out and found, I have on my shelf here, two full books on death camp humor, filled with jokes that they told each other to keep themselves, because that's what you do. You set things in a perspective that you can handle. That's what humor does. It sets uncomfortable situations into a position of being able to manage it for you.
To manage it, yeah.
How dark has the humor be to manage death camps? How dark does that humor have to be? How strong does that humor have to be? I'm not talking about waiting for your plane being delayed humor. I'm not talking about.
Let's talk about airplane food.
You think about our lives as comics, though. I mean, what we tolerate. The assaults on our egos, on our bodies, on our senses, everything about us. Yeah, we should, and yet we endure. Yeah. For what reason? I still haven't answered that question.
Because it feels good when there's a payoff.
But you have no choice.
That's it. Richie got it, though. We have no choice. Okay. We're driven.
Look, I wrote this in my book. Comedy, stand-up comedy, it's such an extreme thing, right? You go in front of a room full of strangers, virtually begging for approval, with your currency is making them laugh. Okay. I grew up with a lot of people who were funnier than me, off the cuff, as quick as me, funnier, creative, funnier. They had no urge to go on to stand up in front of a room full of strangers. They became really funny graphic designers. They became really funny construction guys, really funny lawyers. They became very funny people, but not stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
We have this need. You were either raised, this is my idea, you're either raised as a prince growing up, where everything you did was exalted and valued more than anything, or you're raised like a POW, beaten like a dog mentally, emotionally, physically. Okay. So you're one or the other. Because where are you going to get that kind of approval if you're a prince? Where are you going to go out into the world and get the kind of approval you're used to having? Right? You're not going to get it in a cubicle. You're not going to get it anywhere. And where are you going to get what you never got? Right. So the prince is on stage like going, look, Ma, no hands on the bicycle. And the POWs up there going, can you see me now? Can you see me now? Right. And
The thing that fascinates me, though, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rich, finish your thought.
No, I just want to finish. I can tell pretty much which one is which by the way they handle applause at the end of their acts, because the prince or princess can't get enough applause. They'll stand up there and milk that thing until the audience finally gives up and hand stands up and gives them a standing ovation. And the POW can't wait to get off the stage before the audience changes their mind. It's just a different way of handling applause. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I always am amazed when I stop to think about what we do for a living.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed at how we can just walk out there in front of thousands of people as if we're just going to work, whereas the average person would be Ralph Cramden going hamana, 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 hamana.
Yeah.
For us, it's.
How long did it take you to learn to write a joke? Like, say your first joke. How long did it take you to?
She's still learning.
What day is this? I'm still learning. I am.
Good one. No, look, the first time I went on stage, when I look back at the first material I did, I wrote a joke. I did not know I knew how to write a joke. I knew how to write a joke because I've been funny all my life. I'm talking about people who are funny. Look, we know you can learn to do stand-up comedy. It's a craft. People who are not funny do it. If they want attention badly enough, they'll go up there and get it. I can show you lots of people. I can name names. I go, they're not funny. I've hung out with them countless times off stage. They've never said a funny thing, right? They've never done anything funny.
I think we probably know a lot of the same people.
Right, same people. But they learned how to be funny. They watched and they stole material or they bought material or whatever they've done, but they've learned how to do it. If you need attention, you can get it on stage as a stand-up, obviously. But funny people, ones who have been doing it all their lives, they know how to write a joke before they ever know how to write a joke.
I've never been a great joke writer. But my stuff.
We know.
Shut up.
Yeah, you have. I've seen your stuff. It's still a joke. I can point out the setup and the punchline. It's still a joke.
There is a setup. Yes,
there's a setup and a punchline. Yes, I have. So you set it up and you pay it off with a punchline. You remember the whole alt comedy thing that started back in the 90s, the alt comedy thing. They go, we're not doing jokes.
Right.
We're not.
Oh, yeah.
I can sit there and watch them either do it. They can bring their notebooks on stage and just, here's an idea. I get every time. When you stop talking, right, and they laugh, you've just done the punchline. And I
agree. I do have set up punchlines, but I prefer it in a story form as opposed to a.
I don't care how you. Well,
that's what I meant. Yeah,
your style of delivering story form as opposed, but it's still set up punchline. I don't care if it's.
Yeah.
I didn't see your one-liner comic. That's different, right?
It is like I don't think anybody's that anymore. Do you? Do you know any?
Oh yeah, there's some good ones out there.
Well, Stephen Wright's still.
Well, yeah, but
he's still around, right?
He's an old timer.
No, but I mean, there are still people out there doing one-liner acts.
I admire that. That's a hard thing to do.
Well, you have to love.
You remember Ronnie Shakes?
Really strong writer.
Yes, I do remember Ronnie Shakes. Yeah,
Ronnie Shakes is one of the best of our generation, right? And he remember he says, last week my therapist said something that brought tears to my eyes. She said, "No habla inglés."
But you have to see Ronnie deliver.
Yeah, but he would go on stage with his notebook and he'd do a setup and then he'd try 6 or 7 different punchlines for the audience. Like he'd keep doing the same setup and punchline until the audience goes, and then you go, okay, yeah, that's right. That was the best reaction.
Well, Rodney would work out a Carson set like that. He'd go into a club with a stack full of cards.
Hey, I come to work out my Tonight Show shot here. Look, I'm not a fucking idiot, all right? I don't try the jokes there and come work and do them here, all right? I'll try them here and do them there.
But you think about how much material he burned in the course of one Carson shot. I mean, 6 minutes of stand-up and then another 6 minutes doing panel. It's a lot of jokes.
Rich, can I ask you, and because you brought up Carson, and did you, when you did that show, because I think every comedian thought as soon as you did that show, your life changed forever. Did you find that to be the case?
It did. And I tell you why, because I felt differently about myself. You know, back then it was a stamp of approval that we all searched for. Not everybody. Obviously, there were some that didn't. And you talk about later, Sam Kinison or someone open up a different route to the new world, so to speak. Yeah. But at that time, you know, and I remember going back, and this is the day of the voice machines, right? Message machines, and there were like 100, my message machines were filled, like 100 messages from other comics, right? And I got one from Seinfeld before I left that night to go to do the Tonight Show. He's the only one that called in the daytime, left a message, says, "You've already hit the home run. You're just circling the bases. Don't trip. Doesn't look good for the fans." You know, you'd already done all the work, you know. He's about as insightful about stand-up comedy as anybody I know. I mean, he's put more thought into it, obviously, than I think anybody has. Great intelligence.
Did you see his documentary?
It's terrific. Yeah, and of course, he's got the foil. He's got the foil. Adams is the perfect foil for him. It was just fantastic. That scene in the kitchen where Orny's like, you know, if I don't make it soon, I don't know what I'm going to do. And Jerry's just looking at him with a smile going, what else are you going to do?
Right. Like, this is all you know how to do. What are you doing? What is more important?
Orny's like, I got to make it. And Jerry's like, Jerry never had that point.
Yeah,
Jerry never had. He was going to be a stand-up comic if he'd had beat around and be a Vegas opening act.
Yeah,
you know, for his
but it was pretty apparent. Don't you think it was apparent even back when he was still in New York that he was the golden child?
I'll tell you one thing.
You don't think so?
No.
If you watch that documentary, and I don't mean to cut you up, the one thing that you really have to, whether you like Seinfeld or not, is when he was banging out at the clubs, working out his material. He's like, do I want to be doing this? Like, be like going out at 10 o'clock at night and be hammering away? Do I need to do it? No. He goes, but I look at these construction workers when they're going to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and they're getting up in their little elevator or whatever. He goes, they don't want to be doing that either. But that's your job. And this is my job. And this is what I have to do to be better. And
I got so much from that guy when I first started. He taught me that when I first met him, like back 79, 80. He said, I write every day. I'm like, well, every day I write for a couple hours. So I got that in my DNA. Back then, if I was hungover, didn't matter. I got up and sat there and worked on my material because he had the secret, which was you go on stage that night, even if you didn't have the right punchline that time in the day when you worked on it, you'd focus your mind on it, on the setup. You'd focus it so you're on stage and your ego says, can't be embarrassed tonight. Try this line. Try this line. Here you go.
And and just one more thing. I'll never forget when he was on stage and he was trying out new material and he forgot his line or he did something and it wasn't very funny. And this woman with an accent, I don't know if she was from Australia or whatever, she goes, is this your first time? And he goes, and he looks at her and goes, yes, it's my first time. It was beautiful.
No, he you know, so yeah, I mean that.
But you knew, like, it was like...
No, I did not know. And I don't think everybody said Jerry was anointed. I mean, he was a great...
I didn't say anointed, but I remember watching him and seeing how, like, Silver would react to him and the other comics would react
no,
to him.
everybody did. You knew he, in terms of stand-up, he was stand-up absolutely.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah.
But back then, To Make It was a sitcom. And Jerry, I don't know if you remember, was on that show, Benson.
Benson,
right?
Yeah.
He played a governor's aide, and he got fired because he wasn't a good actor. And I remember at the time, everybody was like call to arms going, come to the Improv tonight. We got to circle the wagons, to help Jerry. Just got fired today, right? So everybody go there. Jerry walks in like everybody's like, how you doing? Jerry goes, I don't give a crap. I'm going back out in the road. I'm doing stand-up. He didn't care one bit. So
well, I know we've been at this for a while. I see this happens every week, Rich. We get such great guests on that you just want to talk throughout the entire night. And
I hear you.
And I would love that. But I want to wrap up. I'll start to wrap up.
Okay.
So let's talk about the show, the history of stand-up comedy.
Sure.
Where
sure.
are you? Where are you these days?
Well,
and how could people find you?
Well, they can find me. They can find me on Facebook. They can find me at my website, richshydner.com, RITCHSHYDNER, one word.com. And Rick Siegel's my manager, and Josh Weinstein is director of the show. We're trying to work it into 5 episodes for a streaming service. So that's what we're
Say hi to
working on
Rick
right
for
now.
me, by the way.
I will. So that's why we want to do it that way. I mean, I love doing it a live. Josh's idea is to do it like a live documentary where I'm on stage, you bring other people up, you have a big screen up there to put the clips and videos and pictures and everything. And so we have a lot of ideas how to do it, but I love doing it. I'm going to go to Gettysburg College this Monday, which is my alma mater, and do a big thing there at night for all the students to do this thing. It's for history. And I'll lean heavily because one of the professors who asked me to do it is a Jewish cultural professor. So I lean heavily on the Jewish influence and the Jewish stand-up comics, which is not hard to do.
You just popped a question into my mind because I hadn't thought of it up until you just mentioned that. Is the show organically evolving all the time? I mean,
yeah, it is.
Stuff,
yeah, I know. People ask questions and the questions come up. And I got a great question, and I'll just throw this out there now. And this does a young woman asked me this question. She said, what about what do you think of historically the whole thing with Dave Chappelle and the transgender controversy? What do you think of that? And this came out of me just you know what I mean, Julie. This is like one of these gifts come out of me. You go, well, here's what I think. Artemus Ward, the first stand-up comic, was working in the Civil War time. He goes to London. He always had this theory that when you do jokes about specific groups, especially groups that are unfamiliar with the public, like the Mormons were at the time at that point, right? They were a new religion, or the free love movement, which was women really just trying to get rights as married women, right? They had no rights as married. So he did jokes about it because he thought if he did jokes about it, it made them human, right? And less mysterious to the public. So it helped them, right? So he goes to London. He's got 2 jokes. One joke is really the pie lands on white people. They're blaming white people for the black people's fault. The other joke is it's a simple pun joke. He says, look, there are all kinds of roses. There are yellow roses, red roses, and of course the Negroes, right? Stupid little silly pun joke, right? Not offensive, right?
Yeah.
So he's at this party after his show one night in London, and this woman comes up. She was a slave in America who got free and then educated in New England, and then met this British diplomat, and he married her. And now she's living in London. She comes over to him and says, Mr. Ward, I enjoyed your show, but you know those jokes you do about my people, right? He says, can you drop them? I think they do us a disservice. And he gives her he gives her his theory. She says, yes, but people are always looking for a reason to mock us. They're looking to laugh at us. So that joke just gives them an excuse to laugh at us. That's all they're doing. And he considered it. He went, yeah. She goes, we can't afford, basically what she says, we can't afford to take the hit. We're not like other groups. We get a lot of problems. All right. So we don't need the mocking. It doesn't help us. And
Artemus Ward was a very wise man.
And he dropped the joke. And I thought to myself, that's what I tell Dave Chappelle. Really? You can't find anything else to joke about?
Right.
You don't think this group has enough problems? Even though you may think you know where the joke lands and you're not making fun of them, other people will use that to make fun of them. I'll give you another example. Smart. I was in Dallas way back in the day. There was a comic named Rick Reynolds. I'll name the name. I don't care.
I remember that.
Yeah, he did a one-man show that made a lot of money. But this was before that. And he had what he thought was a hip joke where he was going to do the Lenny Bruce sort of overuse the N-word and make it meaningless. That was Lenny Bruce's theory, which was disproved a long time ago. Right. But he thinks he's going to bring it back in a way. So I'm on stage watching him, and he's dropping the N-bomb with the ER, not even the A. It's the ER, like crazy. And the audience is howling. And he comes off, and he's like, it's a hip joke, man. I said, no, they're not. This is Dallas, man. You think those people are laughing at your puncturing the stereotype? They're laughing at the reinforcing of the stereotype. That's what they're laughing at. Know who your audience is laughing at and why they're laughing.
I got asked by everybody about Chappelle when it happened. The first time it happened, then forget the second time.
But that's really wise. I mean, that's really insightful and intelligent to be able to dissect that and figure it out.
When you say things are mysterious, that doesn't come to my mind by me. Some other thing brought that to my mind, but it's it. And now I'm putting it into. We're putting it into the thing. If we ever get a chance to do a 5-part, it goes in without a Q&A. It becomes part of the show, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's I appreciate that. I'm glad you're an ally, and we can't always. I talk about it a lot in my act, and but I mean, I think it's funny the way I do it. I talk about my experience living that life and the things I've experienced, but in a way that people maybe stop and go, "Oh, geez, I never thought of that," and so that's how I approach it.
I think it's fantastic. And we were talking, you and I were talking before, Julie, about this, that, every generation's got to learn, everything changes, culture changes, and older people are resistant to change. They're just not flexible of spirit, body, mind. They're not flexible, and you get more locked in. And so you don't understand things. And when I was young, I had a friend of mine, Clyde Collier, his name in high school. He was an artsy
great
guy.
name.
He's a great guy. And he was an artsy guy, and I'm a jock wannabe. I was a terrible athlete, but I wanted to be. So I was out there put myself out there. But he was, and I could not ever go on stage, but I was attracted to what they were doing in the theater department of school. So I would be backstage just moving equipment, moving furniture or whatever, changing scenes or whatever. I'd be one of those guys.
You told me about this guy. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So he was one of the stars. He was an artsy guy. And I just was, how do you get up there and do that? And I was attracted to the whole art of it and all. And he remembered years later, he said, you were one of those guys. I can't tell you, the guys would give me a hard time and you'd come over there and tell me to shut up, and you sort of protected me. And he said, I really appreciate it as a gay man. I said, Clyde, I didn't know you were gay. I didn't even know what gay was. I knew you were gay before I knew you were gay. You know what I'm saying? That's all I knew. You were just artsy and soft, and I wished I was a little bit of that myself. You know what I mean? You're not soft like in a weak way, but sensitive and creative.
Approachable.
Yeah. So
I think you are. I think you are a lot more now than you were when you were younger. I mean, I remember you when you were kind of brash and.
Oh yeah, but I never had that because the greatest professor I had in college was a gay man, and he's the one who encouraged me to be funny. Like I was in public speaking class. I couldn't speak in front of the public. He goes, first day, everybody's going to do a speech. Everybody comes in, they're reading, they're reading MacArthur's speech. They're reading the Gettysburg Address and all. I took David Bowie's song "Changes." I just took all the lyrics, right? I listened to the record over and over until I got all the lyrics, and it came and deadpan read it, So it was funny. I go, these changes, right? And I just did it deadpan, and I got laughs. Yeah. And as we're leaving the class, he pulls me aside. He says, "Can you do that again?" He gives me that challenge. Can you do that again? I knew exactly what he was saying. So I come back in next week with the Rolling Stones "Sympathy for the Devil," but I changed the "Sympathy for the Insurance Man." And I wrote a whole parody, which I didn't even know song parodies were. I just did it instinctively. I wrote a song parody.
Funny Bones. And then I got Funny Bones.
And then I started writing for the school. I started writing for the school sketches and stuff. So he got me that. So that's
see. I told you we were going to work backwards in your life. We started out with what you're doing.
Now we're back to high school.
High school.
We're like Benjamin Button.
Yeah.
This has been really. Honest to God, I'm glad. We never really knew each other very well, and I'm kind of glad that we had this opportunity, to kind of get to know one another a little bit better. Yeah. So
you didn't do enough drugs back then. That's your problem.
Oh, I did. I just didn't tell anybody.
She was stingy. She wouldn't share.
Good, Kathy.
But we I really want to thank you. Honest to God, this was like a step back in time.
I hope we get together. I hope I get up there sometime. I'm coming up there Thursday, but I got a thing to do down in my hometown Saturday night. But I hope to see you up there sometime.
Yeah, good. Well, if you're up in the city, call me. I'm in Jersey, but I mean, I'll come up and we'll go grab some dinner or something like that.
Yeah. You're in Jersey. Where?
I'm at the shore. I'm down the shore.
Oh, you're all the way down the shore. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm near Asbury Park.
Oh,
not far from Asbury Park.
Ritch, will you come back?
Once again, you mean you want to put me on camera again?
Yes. No, will you come back and tell us how things
Absolutely,
are going?
I'd
Great.
be honored. I'd be honored.
Thank you for
I had a lot of
being
fun.
with us. It's
Thank
been
you.
fun. Thank you. Thank
We'll
you.
talk soon. Thank you. Thanks, buddy. I
right.
love you. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you. All right. Cool.
And
Take
thank
care,
you.
Rich. See ya.
Thank you, Kathy.
All right,
Thanks
bye.
to our 4 listeners. Wow, that was so much fun.
Oh my God, he's so charming.
Isn't he
You
wonderful?
didn't
Yeah.
tell me you knew such nice people.
How do you think I got to be the way I am?
Well, I just thought it was genetics.
Oh, stop.